We grew up on television. The tube was our babysitter, guidance through the tube, moral sent by transmitter. This is where you go to get down to the know about great TV shows all on one show. It's time for some TGIF right here on Pop Culture Minefield. Thank God it's Friday on Pop Culture Minefield. Thank God it's Friday on Pop Culture Minefield. Thank God it's Friday on Pop Culture Minefield.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to TGIF. Yes, normally you would have Gerry greeting you, but he is unavailable. Technical issues. So you got me, Keith, along with Anima, Martin, and our guest here, Mr. Mike, Mr. Chris. It's an honor to have you guys. Look, every time we have big talent like this, we got to pull out all the stops, so.
It's an honor to be here.
It's really cool to have you guys.
I am Mike's avatar. I will speak for Mike.
I didn't know Mike Barron did impressions.
So, first of all, greetings, gentlemen. Hopefully everything's good where you are.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for coming.
Mike, are things good where you are?
No.
No.
Where are you?
It's snowing.
Oh, that's not good. No.
Mike lives
hate
in
snow.
Colorado. Yeah.
Well, look, they had to have warned you about that before you moved there. So
Nobody told me.
If
I
it's
moved out here
snowing,
away
that
from
means
the
it's too
winters.
cold.
Colorado is a beautiful state, though. I've been to it a few times. So, look, I'm just going to dive right into this because I am really wanting to get into this book, this story. I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan, and so for you guys to do this is just fun. This is just fun. So, what inspired you guys to do this particular story?
I always say that I don't choose my stories choose me. And about a year ago, I just started getting on a Sherlock Holmes binge, and I started to watch all the Sherlock Holmes movies I could find on streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, there are far, far more than I can watch in a couple of years, but I was watching them anyway. When I was a kid, I read all the books. I think that any book-friendly adolescent is going to be attracted to Holmes, is going to slurp him up. The key is, of course, Holmes is an endlessly fascinating character, the most widely known fictional character in history.
Mm-hmm.
And because of his personality, and it just occurred to me, suddenly it snapped in my head, I would love to write a story about this guy. So I thought about it, and I was aware of his Victorian roots and how Victorian heroes never die, and they're all with us today in various incarnations. And it just occurred to me that Captain Nemo and Sherlock Holmes would be an explosive mixture. And from there, I started making notes, and I came up with a story about a shipping magnate whose ships mysteriously disappear at sea. And the last one, the only survivor was a sailor clinging to the backside of an overturned lifeboat, and he was out of his mind when they found him. And he said, it was a monster. It was a monster that sank our ship. And then the shipping magnate comes to Holmes and says, "Mr. Holmes, my last 2 ships from Argentina have disappeared without a trace. I would like to hire you to find out the cause." And Holmes says, "Well, I'm not really crazy about going out to sea." And the shipping magnate says, "I will give you a Stradivarius violin." So the deal is done.
Wow. Wow. Oh. Well, look, being a fan of Sherlock Holmes, and I am myself, I probably haven't read every single Holmes story like you have. Let me, at least for my own benefit, ask, which of the stories is your favorite?
I like A Scandal in Bohemia for a couple of reasons. One is that was the first story where we realized Holmes was a master of disguise. And also, I think that the situation, which was domestic intranquility, is something that's really anathema to him. But he took it on anyway because of the challenge.
Wow. What about you, Chris? What's your favorite Holmes story?
Well, I mean, I like Count of the Baskervilles, but who doesn't? I have to admit, I have not read any Sherlock Holmes. I've only seen the movies. I'm a big Basil Rathbone fan.
Mhm.
My dad was a huge fan, so we had all of them on VHS when that was a thing, and eventually upgraded those to DVDs. And Sherlock Holmes is just, I really like the BBC series. The two that I've seen are the ones with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Mhm.
And oh gosh, who's the fella that did it?
Jeremy Brett.
Yeah, Jeremy Brett. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
good stuff. I mean, I like mysteries, so my wife and I watched Poirot, all of those. It's just nice to have some kind of a murder mystery. And what was fascinating about this story that Mike put together was it's Holmes, it's Watson. They're fully in character, not the Watson bumbling idiot from the Basil Rathbone movies, but really much more in line with the classic version of Watson. And he teams up. I mean, so Mike has taken these characters. It's sort of it's a pastiche, obviously, because it's not written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but he's brought in other characters of the era as well. So Holmes teams up with Captain Nemo, the Jules Verne character from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Mhm.
And you see Wyatt Earp in this, and you see some other characters that I don't think Mike wants us to mention. Mike is no spoilers for this. It's a fun story, and it's good art. Rich is a magnificent illustrator, and I've worked with Rich and Mike before when we did Private American, which was a couple of years ago, but it's being solicited in the direct market now this month in previews with Antarctic Press coming out as 3 floppy issues starting in January. So been friends with these guys for a while. I just basically run the campaigns. I mean, I publish Bleeding Fool. I'm the editor over there, which is how Mike and I hooked up. Mike is an avid reader and pop music horticulturalist. I don't think that's the word, but a huge fan. And he's always writing and reading. And I think he got sick of Bleeding Cool. And then when somebody mentioned Bleeding Fool, he checked it out.
I never was a Bleeding Cool regular.
Okay.
One visit was enough for me.
Yeah, right on. So he's a pretty regular reader there and hit me up. One time, I think he just emailed me the cover art for Florida Man. And I thought it was hilarious. And I said, who's publishing this? And Mike was doing a lot of work at Dark Horse Comics at the time. And Dark Horse wasn't interested in doing a funny book for grownups. And I said, why don't you crowdfund it? And he said, why don't you help me crowdfund it? And then a friendship of many years and success was born. So I've run Mike's last 6 campaigns, Mike. I don't know. Florida Man 1, 2, Bronze Star, Private American, this one, Nexus. I think that's it. Yeah, 6. And we visit each other and when we can, and we talk probably every day, Mike.
Oh yeah.
about something. So we're good friends. And Rich is just they say in this business with artists, you can have fast, good, and affordable, but you can only pick two. And thankfully, Rich is not affordable. We get the two good ones. He's fast, he's good. And that's why we're raising money so Rich can get paid and we can color the book. The book is fully penciled and inked. So it's 72 pages of story. It's massive. It's absolutely exquisite. It's steampunk. Mike, wouldn't you call it sort of a steampunk aesthetic?
Yes, I would. And when you see the trailer, you'll see elements of that. But I think that Jules Verne is kind of the father of steampunk.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And Nemo is one of my all-time favorite characters. That's what really stood out when I heard about this particular project, that teaming, Sherlock Holmes and Captain Nemo together, that's can't miss, in my opinion. It truly is can't miss. And just, this is completely within my wheelhouse. But what would you say to someone who is not as well versed with these characters? How would you get them to want to read this particular story?
Well, one thing is sure that everybody has heard of Sherlock Holmes, and most people have heard of Captain Nemo.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say that this is a story that will grab you by the throat on the first page and never let up. My number one goal has always been to entertain, and I strive to do that. And one of the ways is I don't let a picture or a word into that book unless it contributes to the story. There's no treading water, despite a few scenes in this graphic novel. And the story takes off with the speed of a locomotive and never slows down. It's a globe-trotting story. They're trying to stop a madman from igniting World War III. And the madman will be familiar of aficionados of Victorian literature. There are a few surprise characters that you're going to love. They're all presented in context and true to the way they were created. And I think that's one of the best things about it. Also, I should point out that Irene Adler is a major player in this story.
Yes.
Because she's got the skills and also because she makes Sherlock so uneasy.
Cool. Way cool. See, that's the great thing about having someone who is a fan themselves actually doing this and not just putting names together and just regurgitating something that, that seems to be what a lot of projects nowadays seem like, that it's just a lot of word salad to people.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's, go ahead, Chris.
Well, Mike is a big fan. You can tell. I mean,
yeah.
He has a long history with Holmes too. I'm surprised he's not wearing the correct headgear.
Oh yeah, I could go back and get my deerstalker.
No, but tell us, Mike, tell us a little of your history with Holmes, really.
Well, when I was a kid growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, I devoured all the books, and I heard about a club called the Baker Street Irregulars, and that's not a name unique to Madison. Many Holmes fans call themselves the Baker Street Irregulars. And we would meet once a week in a stone cottage in Shorewood to discuss the stories. So that's where my enthusiasm grew. Then I started watching the movies. The one that sticks in my mind is An Experiment in Terror, where Sherlock Holmes, played by John Neville, very well done, takes on Jack the Ripper. And of course, that's such a natural pairing of characters. That's not the only Holmes story in which he does it. It must have occurred to everybody at the time that Sherlock Holmes was coming out, because that's when Jack the Ripper was active. Why not stick Holmes on Jack the Ripper? Of course, you can't do that in real life. It wouldn't make any effect. And people are still arguing over the true identity of Jack the Ripper. That they're not arguing after they've seen a study in Crimson. Excuse me, it's called A Study in Crimson, which shows exactly who Jack the Ripper was and why.
So
Wow.
Mike obviously loves the character, and I think he's thrown in as many things as he could, but also it's not weighted down. When he says he keeps it streamlined and keeps it every word counts, you can the book reads so fast. I mean, it's a complete story, but you will not feel like it doesn't drag on. Let's just say that. It's action packed. It makes for like maybe a good 75, 80-minute movie, you know?
Which is good.
Yeah.
Now, would you consider your take on Sherlock Holmes to be closer to the literary version, or is it a combination of all the different versions of Holmes that you've enjoyed, as far as, you know, what Hollywood has put out and what you've seen on
Well,
TV?
I think it's closest to the literary version. That's what Holmes is. My favorite Holmes is Jeremy Brett.
Cool.
And his series, I think, is closest to the novels themselves. After Jeremy, believe it or not, I think Benedict Cumberbatch is my favorite Holmes. I loved what he did with the character, moving him up into the 21st century and making him relevant. And then, of course, Basil Rathbone, who was Holmes.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Brett seemed to grasp something about the character that other actors didn't, and that was that he suffered from Asperger's syndrome, and that he was had no purpose unless he had a case to work on, and that was the only thing that brought him alive. And he teaches people with such courtesy and dignity, and you understand that that's all learned behavior. He didn't do that naturally. He did that by observing the way people interact with each other and saying, I have to do that. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't sincere. He's absolutely sincere when he shows concern for others, but it's learned behavior on his part.
Welcome, Rich. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I think I am doing A-okay. Look, let me
Did we see the trailer?
Nope.
Oh, not yet. Not yet. I was basically hoping to get you here on time, and that way we could watch the trailer and then talk to you guys out on the other side of that. But at least, first of all, let me just thank you for coming. When you received the script for this, what went through your mind as soon as you were able to read what Mike had put together for this particular project?
Was I going to do it justice? I mean, I knew it was going to be good, but they're all good. But yeah, I was just concerned with being able to do it justice. And I got through it. I think I did a pretty good job.
You did a fantastic job, in my opinion. Were you a big Sherlock Holmes fan prior to that, or was it
No, I mean, I watched Hound of the Baskervilles. That was about it.
Okay.
We're in the same club, Rich.
Right.
Well, listen, let's go ahead and watch the trailer. And then on the other side, I will have some more questions, and we'll even take a few questions from our lovely audience. So, Martin, let's go ahead and roll that.
Okay.
When a series of shipping disasters points to a mysterious sea monster, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson leave the comfort of Baker Street and board a freighter where they encounter unexpected betrayal and come face to face with the enigmatic Captain Nemo and his submarine, the Nautilus. As they delve deeper into the case, they uncover a conspiracy involving a Russian Tsar with an airship that rains destruction on unsuspecting cities. With time running out and the world on the brink of war, the heroes must use all their skills and resources to stop a massive conspiracy and prevent global conflict. From Eisner-winning writer Mike Barron and illustrator Richard Bonk, dive into the depths of adventure and unravel the mysteries of the sea with the world's greatest detective in Leviathan. Order now on Fund My Comic.
Wow, it's just wow. I want to read that right now.
I love the animation on that. I must watch that 2 or 3 times a day.
Oh man!
First of all, fantastic artwork. I love the way it looks. And again, Mike, what can I say? it personally means a lot to me that you are such a fan of the character of Sherlock Holmes. That allows the material to rise above a lot of what's out there, because it just seems like there is a kind of arrogance with a lot of storytellers nowadays that when they use IP that they didn't create, that there's an almost feeling that they are better than the material, or that they are going to try to do something to fix things that they see wrong within the material, rather than just trying to relate a good, solid story. Do you see that yourself? Do you? Oh, wait.
Can't hear you, Mike.
You're on.
I do, and one of the things that strikes me about Holmes and most Victorian literature is the class consciousness which permeates every scene.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Sherlock Holmes, he's always dealing with the upper class, and they've always got the footmen around and the servants, and they're always tugging their locks and saying, "Yes, your lordship," and "Yes, my ladyship," and that never deviates. You hear a little grumbling from time to time, but it's another world. It's
Yes.
a world that doesn't exist today. And it's just something that strikes me about Victorian literature. It's not just Holmes; it's all of it. It's Dickens as well. Of course, Dickens uses the classes in a more moral and substantive way when he's pointing out the abuses of the upper classes towards the lower. But you don't see that in Holmes. You just see an acceptance of the way things are. Not that Holmes would ever treat a footman disrespectfully. He never would. I think he's got respect for everyone, regardless of their station, unless they're a cad.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's this entire project just hit me. I mean, it's just, ugh.
I say, good God.
So
Holmes teams up with James Brown.
I love it.
Well, let me know when you're doing that one too. I just gotta ask now, Rich, what is it about Mike's writing that truly just inspires you to produce the artwork that you do? Is there something, about it consistently that you just,
Yes, Rich is having connection problems.
okay.
Oh, damn.
Okay, that's fine. That's
If
fine.
I can brag about Rich for a minute, he is so good, tight, consistent. If we can get him, I've told Mike, I said, you need to get, the next book needs to be time travel with dinosaurs, because Rich explodes on dinosaurs. He's just so good. But he's consistent. I think that's the other thing is,
Mhm.
Rich is drawn for Image Comics, Spawn. There he is. He's back. You back with us, Rich?
I'm here.
I was just kind of talking a little bit about your pedigree, but they were wanting to know more about how you feel about the way Mike writes. How do you come up with what you're going to draw on the page?
Well, it's just so believable. You can tell that he's done his homework, and it's I don't know how to explain it. I mean, it's total pro from beginning to end, and it's exciting to read and just to get my head into it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, now, Chris, coming from what you do, you're able to cover a lot of different teams who have written and created comics. What would you say about this project makes it stand out from a lot of other projects that have been produced like this over the last 15 years?
I think you touched on it a little bit. When it's an existing property or a public domain character, the knee-jerk current modern year treatment is a deconstruction, right?
Yeah.
Or a destruction, if you will. It's kind of like the kid in the neighborhood that nobody likes that comes over to play with your action figures and immediately starts doing something bizarre and out of character with them just to amuse themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike's got a lot of reverence for these characters. And the way that what was fascinating to me when I first started working with Mike is looking at the script. He does give you some specific instructions to the illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the artist is given some instruction as far as where something ought to be in certain panels or who someone should look like. Like he'll give a reference to an actor from a movie or character, but he really lets the artist kind of do their thing. I mean, he doesn't really restrict them and specify. Now, we have worked with an artist that's like, you know, maybe Mike needs to thumbnail these things out, but Rich is not like that. Rich, you just give him the script and he goes to town and he is lickety split quick. He's so fast. I got to say, he's so fast at it. I would say to Mike, now, are you sure the script's ready? Because Rich is going to get ahead of me even looking through this thing, and it's already going to be done. And you're going to say, hey, we need some changes here. And I always hate asking for any changes because, you know, Rich is not doing this digitally. He's doing it, you know, pencils, pens, old school on paper. I mean,
true
Rich,
old school.
He
Wow.
definitely is. And I think the other thing about this project is, somebody said it in a private chat that we're in the other day. It's culture, it's class, it's something. It's not boobs, babes, skin tight, spandex, superheroes. Matter of fact, when I think about it, all the projects that I've worked with Mike, only one of them has been superheroes, and that was Nexus, right? I mean, we've done this weird Western, we've done the Vigilante book with Rich, Private American, Thin Blue Line, the police thing, and then a couple of editions of Florida Man, which is, you know, it's neither fish nor fowl. And a lot of these are neither fish nor fowl. And I catch myself sometimes saying things like, man, you know, knowing the market, because we want to get as many eyes on this as possible, obviously. So I'll say something to Rich, like maybe we need an Eileen Adler cover variant, you know, something just to get more people to pay attention to it. But we didn't go that way. And I don't know if I ever actually did say that to Rich. I might have. Did I? Okay. But, you know, all in the effort just to get more eyes on the book, because it's good. And the campaign's doing pretty good so far. We're a weekend. We've raised about 12,000 or 13,000 or so the first week. So things are looking good. There are a lot of Sherlock Holmes fans out there.
Oh yeah. And
we just really are trying to let as many of them know. This isn't the first Sherlock Holmes comic book by any means. They've been around for years and decades, but I do think that this clever team up with Captain Nemo is something special. And there's some surprise characters in here too that I think are pretty special. And Rich brought his A game like he always does.
You know, you mentioned that there are a lot of people working in this medium, and I would like to point out that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has written 3 graphic novels featuring Mycroft Holmes, Sherlock's smarter older brother. They're all on Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah, I hear they're good. I've not read any of them, but I hear they're good, and he loves the character.
And that's important. You know, that nowadays, that really is what separates the truly quality stuff from just the run-of-the-mill stuff that's produced, and in certain instances, overproduced, and in other instances, unfortunately, underproduced. And with this particular project, it's just nothing but really old-fashioned quality from beginning to end. I mean, again, it just blows my mind that with Richard Bonk, you're hand-drawn all of this stuff. And that just makes you you do realize how cool that is, right? I mean, you really are right now one of the cool guys working.
I appreciate that. Thanks. And,
it's just, I have talked to so many that have converted over, and you know they do what they do with electronics and with computers and stuff, and to know that there is someone who's just still getting it done that way, it makes me feel really good about this project, to know that this is something that is just so, you know, it's just
it's handcrafted.
Yes, from end to end, it is handcrafted.
I did try that with digital stuff, but it's just too alien. You know, you've got it's too much of a separation. for me, anyways.
Wow. Just wow. I mean, really, you and Mike together is just wow. You guys are just the punch this industry needed, you know, and just to continue to see what you guys produce is just it's an honor, first of all, to be a fan of the medium and be a fan of what you guys do.
Well,
You
thank
know?
you.
I can't wait for people to actually read what you guys have done with this particular project. And I know I, for one, look forward, and I know I'm going to get a lot out of this. I can't wait to actually fully immerse myself in this.
You're gonna love it, Keith. You're gonna love it. We should be fulfilling in March.
Okay.
So now that we've hit a certain threshold of funding, this weekend, obviously we had to have a few pages colored to make the trailer.
Mhm.
And so I'll be engaging Rob Epps. Rob is, we've worked with Rob before. He did the coloring for Mike's, another one of Mike's books, Black Tide Rising, Volume 2, which is also funding right now on Indiegogo. And before that, we first worked with him on Bronze Star, which, if you missed Bronze Star, it's a great weird Western that Pat Broderick drew. Pat is working furiously on Volume 2 right now. He just FedEx some pages over today. And he created Creature Commandos with J.M. Mateus. So he's kind of back in the news right now with James Gunn.
Yeah.
He's FedExing pages?
Well, he's taking the pages to be scanned at FedEx, and then they do a Dropbox. Yeah.
I was gonna say
No,
that
he keeps his page. It's not that old school. No, not that old school.
Well,
But,
Pat doesn't even have a computer.
No, he has a laptop. No, he has a laptop.
Oh, he does?
But he's also old school. It made me think of it, thinking about Rich hand drawing. That's the way Pat's doing it. And as a matter of fact, Mike and Rich are in this month's previews because Antarctic Press picked up Private American, the last book they did together. And it is issue number 1 comes out in January. So, and that's a vigilante down on the southern border, stopping fentanyl dealers and child traffickers from coming across the border.
I should point out that I wrote Private American to show people what Punisher should be today, since Marvel became embarrassed by the character and dragged him through the mud.
Yeah.
That deconstruction phase that we're in, I think, is the problem. Yeah.
That has got to be the worst thing, in my opinion, to really happen, not just to comics, but to entertainment over the last 10 years. It's not so much, what certain people are trying to make it seem like it's too many comics and too many superheroes. It's the fact that you mix deconstruction to any of this stuff. I mean, there was a time when that was kind of nice to do occasionally, but it seems to permeate every single thing out there. Are you guys finding that same thing? Is that something that...
Oh, we've noticed that for years, but it's on the retreat now. These people are losing money hand over fist. People go into entertainment to make money. I mean, that's why they do it. And also because they love the form. People go to movies and read books and comics to be entertained. They lost sight of that. They thought it was their job to save the world or whatever. And they hire people that have no clue how to tell a story. But they do have a strong message to straighten you out, whatever your problem is. And that's a lecture. People don't like lectures. And that's why these movies are bombing. And why DEI agents are being fired from the gaming companies, and the whole thing is imploding. And it's a large reason Marvel and DC are circling the drain.
Yeah. I think they tried to come out with the characters rather than deconstructing characters or putting lectures in the established legacy characters' mouths. They tried to come out with some of their own characters. And I don't think that Snowflake and Safe Space took off over at Marvel. So they needed to, deconstruct the Punisher and turn him into, I think they turned him into like he was a sociopathic murderer when he was a child or something. So it's completely ruined his story as a vigilante by making him somebody unsavory and distasteful. And of course, they hated the fact that the police had embraced and the military had embraced the Punisher emblem to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. it's just ridiculous. And that is what the problem has been, is sort of this effort to make all these established legacy characters more palpable to them, to get rid of the, yucky toxic masculinity or whatever that Luke Skywalker had. So we got to do The Last Jedi, right? And I think now, like Mike said, you have these movie studios that are eliminating their DEI departments. I think the overwhelming landslide of Donald Trump this week also opened a lot of eyes, because there were a lot of people literally that have lived in this bubble that had no expectation that there could possibly be more people to vote for Donald Trump than would vote for Kamala. I mean, come on, she ticked all the DEI boxes. And I think they've realized, wait a minute, maybe we're just getting high on our own supply here. And I hope that it's backing off. But the beauty of it is Mike and Rich don't subscribe to any of that BS. And, again, old school, pro-American Americans. I don't see how you can't be pro-American American, but they're out there and they're making pop culture. They're making pop culture less popular, I think, is what they've succeeded in doing. So, Mike and Rich are doing their own thing, and Mike has been a bottomless well of stories. He's a master storyteller.
Yeah.
And Rich is just a master illustrator. Rich, what are you working on right now, by the way? He's finished with Sherlock. I mean, we're just promoting it now, I guess.
On the final stretch for a book for Redneck Nation.
That's right. Bobby Naklicki's book.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that Mike wrote. So that's another Bonk Baron joint that's going to come out. That's a dystopian future. That's the future if Kamala had won, I think. So
I'll be sitting down with Bobby in January.
Oh, good. Yeah, good.
Whoa.
So, I mean, these guys are quite a pair. Honestly, when Mike said something about Sherlock Holmes, I was like, oh man, this is going to be a hard sell, buddy. This is going to be a heavy lift, because, it's not superheroes. It's not babes, and Mike and I have not done a babes book, which I'm proud to say, although I would do it if he came up with a good story. But in this business of comics, superheroes is sort of the bread and butter. And Rich can do superheroes, and Rich can do dinosaurs, and Rich can do babes. So I told Mike, like I said earlier, we got to do something for Rich that's got those elements in it, so he can truly shine, some barbarian babe, dinosaur, whatever. Because Rich is just so good at it. And but I think he stretched himself this time. It looks fantastic. It's got that steampunk aesthetic. And if we can get more Sherlock Holmes fans aware of it, that's all we gotta do, is make them aware. Right. If we could sell a book to 1 out of every 1,000 Sherlock Holmes fans, we'd probably all be independently wealthy. I mean, we've just got to let more people know about it, and that's why we appreciate shows like this.
Oh, again, it's an honor for really all three of you to come on here and want to talk about this amazing project. But let me also ask you, considering that all three of you are also fans, if you were to pick one comic that you enjoyed in your past that is not your own, that you think is something that is a great example of the type of things they should be doing today, what would you pick?
Uncle Scrooge.
Good one.
The only book I ever collected was A Savage Sword of Conan. So that would be my answer. Okay. I love it. Still do.
Rich stole my answer, is what he just did. I am getting the omnibus. I'm very thrilled that Titan has decided to pick up where Marvel dropped the ball and reprint those omnibuy or whatever you call them. But yeah, I love that stuff. But I mean, I like old. I'm a Bronze Age baby, so I mean, you come out with good Bronze Age comic books again, like where Mike cut his teeth. I mean, you go back to some of those old Nexus, man, and that's exactly what it is. And Steve Rude's still creating. So if you're into Nexus, you can find. Speaking of, any of these books that we've talked about that Mike and Rich have done together are available at baroncomics.com. So you can go look at some of that earlier stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I grew up on Amazing Spider-Man and Conan the Barbarian, the floppies. Rich mentioned Savage Sword. I think it's the first time I ever grabbed one of those magazines off the magazine rack, one rack below the Playboys and Penthouse. I was like, oh man, I better not show my parents this. This is unfiltered Conan. I'm no longer going to get the floppy edition. I don't need color. I just need this Conan. It was good and gritty and for grown-ups.
I got into my brother stash back in the 70s, and I was like, I was hooked. It was like pterodactyls and titties. Oh,
yeah. It's crazy. There's the name of your next book right there.
Oh, that's a good ongoing book.
Yeah, maybe.
We need more of that. Look, I remember the 70s and what it was like to have just incredible comics and just all the different subject matter. Back then, for me, it was picking up, Spider-Man. It was picking up Batman at that time. Denny O'Neil was writing. And just we are worlds away from that. The quality of those particular books and what they were able to present. We are so far, unfortunately, away from that. And I don't know how we're ever really going to get back to that. It's going to take a while, in my opinion. What do you think? Do you think it's going to take a while, or do you foresee that maybe a lot of quality people like Mike, like Richard, are out there just waiting to spring back and to just bring us back to that?
Well, I think we're enjoying a renaissance right now.
Yeah, I think we're starting to. Mike right now, I was just joking with him the other day. He's got 6 or 7 projects right now in the news. He's got this. He's got Private American. He's got Nexus Scourge. He's got a Badger project that he wrote a few years ago that's in previews this month. Mm-hmm. He's got this project with Rich that Bobby. What's Battlefield Earth? Is that the name? No.
Battlefield
Suburbia. Yep. He's got, I mentioned it earlier, the Black Tide Rising. What it is, I think, is we're going back towards heroism, right? And meritocracy. That's why a movie like Top Gun Maverick blew everyone away. It was like, oh man, this is what we want to see. This is just old school heroism. It's what we don't have anymore. And there are others. Rich and I were just going gaga over old Savage Sword of Conan. Well, there's guys that are putting out the Atlantean, which is Cull, on their own. It's also on Fund My Comic. Russ Leach from the UK, and gosh, I'm trying to think of the writer of that. But they've got a great campaign over there. I think it's sort of in this boutique niche realm, though, where Mike is doing most of his work now in this independent. Put it out yourself, self-publish it, but make sure that it's of the same quality or better than the market, right? So, which is why it's been not easy, but why we've had a modicum of success taking these books that we're crowdfunding and getting them into the direct market a year or so later, kind of reformatted into floppies, because it's like, well, why didn't we have Mike hired for a series already? Well, sure, we'll take this book that you did. It looks great. It reads great. We'll see if we can sell some floppies and reach a wider audience. So there are some creators out there that are still writing heroism and doing fantastic work, but it's few and far between. We're not going to have Don McGregor and P. Craig Russell doing War of the Worlds meets Conan for Killraven again. Maybe we will one day, but hopefully we'll hear about it. And it's these kinds of shows and this ecosystem of podcasts and live streams that you have to find that stuff on, because the comic book shops they're drowning. They're not selling as many as they used to. The prices are going up and the audience is being run off. When you've got writers who are saying, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my books. Well, the people, when they leave, when they stop buying your books, they don't come back buying your books again. They don't change their minds later.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to listen to you anymore. You can't even get forgiveness from them. So I think another thing that's happened is you have creators who have gotten way too bold in their disdain for people that don't think like them.
Yeah.
And that's hurt the industry. That's hurt Hollywood, honestly.
Well, well, we need more like you guys. We need a lot more people to step up and just produce and just get us back to where we were, as far as the kinds of stories and adventures. And yeah, there's a lot outside of superhero stuff, although a lot of that superhero stuff being produced now, I wouldn't even call superhero stuff.
Right.
It's just noise.
It's coffee talk.
Yeah, it's noise is what it is. Even though a lot of these characters spend more time talking, it's just noise.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in it. I mean, it's empty calories. And there's nothing exciting. I can remember Superman comics where I would pick up a brand new word to say. It would always teach you a brand new word that you had not heard or read before, or just looking at the artwork. Again, Jack Kirby's still my guy.
Yeah.
And you learn so much looking at his work and thinking to yourself, wow, this is really like it's coming off of the page. And again, this is a guy that was just drawing. That's it. Nothing special.
Cranking it out. Cranking it out. Yeah. Yeah.
And just getting it done.
Yeah.
I mean, it still blows me away that he was the design guy for Thundar the Barbarian.
Yeah.
And he was able to make time to do other things outside of just what he was doing.
Yeah.
And wow, just wow.
I think the biggest risk in this industry right now with coming out independently is what we're doing. Okay. So crowdfunding a book, there's so much that goes into this because Rich doesn't get that time back. I mean, Rich, how many pages a week on this were you doing?
2 or 3.
Okay. So on a good week, 3 pages a week, right? So 72 pages. What is that? That's freaking half a year almost. Yeah. Half a year to draw this. And then we've got to raise money for it. And you have to have a low enough threshold goal to at least pay for an allotment of books, because you got to fulfill. If you hit the goal, you got to fulfill, right? So you've also got to pay for the shipping, the Gemini, the tape, the labels, the YouTube ad, the domain, the email, newsletter, monthly BS, the letterer, the colorist. And then you have to say, okay, now let's shake it out. And what's everybody's cut here? And then Rich has to go, okay, 26 weeks of drawing this book. Was this worth it? Right? So like with Private American, for instance, it was pretty good, but that's only because Mike was on Fox News answering questions as to why did Kickstarter knock your Border Patrol vigilante book off, and so it was a fun topic. So Mike was able to reach a lot more people who almost, it was sort of an outrage click sort of purchase, right? Like, thumbing your nose at the people who would shut Mike down. And the same thing just
shocked us. It really shocked us.
Sure.
We didn't think the book was controversial.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, when you read it, it's not. It makes perfect sense. It's like Sicario or Last Blood, Rambo Last Blood. It's, or any movie that's about, hey, the law enforcement couldn't keep my friend or loved one from dying. I have the skills. I have the weapons. I'm going to snuff these people out. I mean, he's not really a hero. He's an anti-hero. He's, like Mike said, the Punisher down at the border.
He's a vigilante.
Exactly. But it's hard to, in this crowdfunding space, to get seen, right? I mean, there's plenty of crowdfund books out there. This Fund My Comic, I know, has probably at least 100 active campaigns right now. So, Mike does shows like this, and we're out there on the social media space trying to get seen. But the only way to be able to create these kinds of stories is if we've got the support from people who are interested in these kinds of stories. So that's why, we're crowdfunding, because right now the industry is so poor that it's not like anybody out there is saying, oh yeah, we'll give Mike, here's here's a $5,000, give us a script. Rich, here's $12,000, give us the pages.
Yeah.
We got to do it all ourselves. So it's kind of a make it or break it situation. So we appreciate everybody that's backing it.
Wow. You know what? Here's a thought. If, Rich, Mike, if you guys were given the opportunity to go to work again for DC or Marvel or both, and they were to ask you, pick any project, any book that you would want to do, you can do whatever you want with it, which would you pick?
Master of Kung Fu.
Oh, wow. Wow. What about you?
Mike's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu, right, Mike?
Karate, but it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I'd say like resurrect Dracula or like the Swamp Thing or something. I would go for something like that.
Well, I think that Kelly Jones and Matt Wagner have grabbed that banner for themselves. And you're aware of their book, right?
Yeah.
What are they working on, Mike?
Well, they just crowdfunded their first version of Dracula.
Dracula, yeah.
And it went into 6 figures, and they're doing another one, Dracula, the Brides of Dracula kind of thing, and that's in 6 figures too.
Oh, wow, that's great. Well, Kelly Jones is
The master.
Preeminent
He is.
macabre artist. working.
Macabre, yeah. Huge fan base just on his work from Dead Man.
You were going to say, Rich?
He's just a master of negative space. You can see it where he'll do all this detail on the inside. He won't put any line work on the outside. It's just he sees the blacks in his head and throws them on there before he. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Look, let me just say again. Ask. Now, how long has this campaign been going on for the book? How long is
1 week?
1 week? Wow.
Yeah.
And you've already achieved so much in 1 week. If this campaign does very well, would you be willing to reteam these characters again in another story?
Sure.
Oh, that's just great news. So then I have an all incentive to be able to tell everybody watching this show that you've got to support this book. I haven't even read it yet, and I'm ready to go.
Well, you'll love it. That's one thing is I'm pretty confident about my work. And I have dogs.
Wow. Okay. 78 days to go. This looks incredible.
Oh my God, the hardcover edition is beautiful.
Oh, jeez.
Gabe Yeltaib colored the cover.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. You did a great job.
Yeah, that hardcover, though, is getting a lot of backers on it. That's going to be autographed by Mike and Rich, too. And, of course, the color covers will be inside near the back.
That is fantastic. And now...
Oh, something? I'm getting done by Devil Flyer Momentum. I'm due on their stream now.
You got to go,
okay.
Mike.
I got to go.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Mike. Thank you. And we hope to have you back on Pop Culture Minefield anytime you want.
Thanks, guys. Happy to do it.
See you, Mike.
Thank you.
See you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, this is just
now we can have some fun.
Well, Rich, I noticed the way you drew the Nautilus for this comic takes a few ideas from the Disney version of the Nautilus.
Oh, it takes a lot of ideas from. I mean, it's a familiar thing from people's pasts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an awesome design.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. I know I say wow a lot, but this is just gorgeous.
Look, see, Watson can fight.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, this is definitely something that I think. How soon will you guys be able to start sending these out once the campaign is done?
The campaign, I think, is set to end the first week of January, but we're probably already going to be at the printer by then, or at least
Okay.
to put in the orders. We're looking at early March for fulfillment, but I think we just say March 31st just to kind of give us time. I noticed somebody in the chat said something about how crowdfunding has been tainted a little bit by creators who don't fulfill, or they're much later than they should be. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that Mike and I, there it is from Shanatsky.
Yeah, Shanatsky. Thank you, Shanatsky.
But they're absolutely right. It makes it look bad for everyone because what happens when a comic book creator or any kind of person who's crowdfunding, but particularly in this realm, don't fulfill, what you did was you just took a customer who probably would have backed other books,
Mm-hmm.
but now that they've gotten burned one time, they say, I'm not doing any more Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing any more Indiegogo comics. I'm out. I got burned that one time. And rather than say, it's almost like it's worse than if you go to a restaurant and have a bad meal and say, I'm not going back to that restaurant. What you've done is that person says, well, I had a bad experience at a restaurant, so I'm not going to any more restaurants, right?
Yeah.
I'll never go to a restaurant again. So we do pride ourselves on fulfilling on time. And, I told Mike early on when we started working together, I said, one of the things we've got to do is fulfill on time. We did not fulfill our first campaign together on time, but to our credit, Mike had to fire the artist. So we got replacement artists in there and got the book done and fulfilled as quickly as we could. But, and thankfully we haven't had to fire any artists since. I mean, my God, I don't see how we could even fire Rich. He's done before I've even gone all the way through the scripts. Like, well, and Rich is so easy. You deal with some artists who are extremely proud of themselves, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to say anything bad, but they have egos. And thankfully, that has not been the case with any of the other artists that we've worked with. Rich is at the top of that list. He's no ego whatsoever. Now, if you go on his Facebook page, he'll show off his motorbike, his awesome physique, how proud he is of his kid. I mean, he is proud of some stuff, but
Don't forget the tomato.
that's right. Yeah. Rich is, he's a man's man and, very easy to get along with. And I think we all pretty much agree ideologically on stuff. I mean, I'm not out there trying to persuade Mike and Rich to think like me, but I think we all kind of think like each other close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the other thing, not to say anything negative about women, but men, I think it's easier for men to work together who don't think alike rather than women who don't think alike. At least that's sort of been the experience that I've seen. Like I can work with people who would not vote it all the way I vote, or who would not go to church like I do.
Yeah.
And would even maybe try to persuade me to think like them. I'm okay with that, particularly from men. But I've noticed that when it comes to my wife or my daughter, they really don't like being in a group or working with people who are not the same as them ideologically. But thankfully, like I was saying, these guys that Mike's, Rich in particular, we all are already kind of on the same page. So it's been a pretty easy process.
Right.
Wow.
But fulfilling on time is very important. I wish more people would do it.
Yeah. Again, I have seen that myself. I've seen quite a few projects that have just not gone very well because of certain irregularities. Look, what for you, Chris? Can you just tell me that? Do you think over the course of this next year that there is truly any hope for the comic book industry if things begin to show a way of turning themselves around now? Do you think there's any real hope for it, or do you just foresee that it's just going to continue to go a particular direction more and more people are going to leave. More and more people are just going to not be interested in comics.
Yeah. I did I published an article over on Bleeding Fool yesterday or the day before. It was after the election about how so many of the current crop of writers and artists and editors at the comic book publishers just had a meltdown. We're having an absolute meltdown. And Mark Waid, of all people, whom I'm sure a lot of people know, who has also been hired by DC Comics to frame and sort of rebuild their entire superhero universe, came out and said, after this election, I don't think I can even believe in heroism anymore. I can't even write superheroes anymore. So if you notice a decline in the quality of my work, this is the day it started or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, if DC doesn't jerk him up by the chain and say, you know what, Mark, either stop the BS or step off, we're going to get somebody else. The problem is you've got too many people that think just like Mark who aren't as brave as Mark. There's plenty that are. And when I say brave, what I mean is stupid to come out and say something like that. He even said something a few months ago, if you're a right winger, I can't work with you. Right. So he's against sort of what I just said about most men. Maybe it's most men like me can work with men who don't think like them. But there are so many ideologues. And if DC and Marvel don't clean up their act, I mean, they had Daniel Cherry at DC Comics, and that clown was probably who was most responsible for Superboy making out with another guy on the cover of the worldwide comic book. Do you think that attracts your core audience of men? Men don't want to see that. Men aren't interested in that. I wouldn't even be interested in seeing a man and a woman make out on the cover of my superhero comic. That's not superhero comics, people. That's romance comics.
That's a different thing.
It's a completely different animal. And until the publishers figure that out, until they figure out, hey, man, we need to be focused on heroism and power fantasies. That's the whole point of comic books. Why was I reading Conan? Because I was a scrawny kid that wanted to get work out and get strong and be able to defend myself and the things that I love and have adventures and just live out a power fantasy. That was Conan, not am I on strike for climate change? Give me a break, man. Nobody wants this crap. But on the other hand, publishers like Titan are doing it right. So there's a lot of people in the independent field. There's Antarctic that's trying to do it right. There's American Mythology that's trying to do it right. Mad Cave is putting out a fantastic Flash Gordon series. I don't know if anybody's been reading it, but it's great. Will Conrad is the artist on it, and Mike just did a book with Will Conrad, The Gooding, over at the Rippaverse, which is great. There are, green shoots, I think is the term that we use. So I think there can be. Mike says there's a renaissance, but Marvel and DC aren't coming back until they get their heads on straight. And the problem is, I think that the cancer over there is terminal. Maybe they'll start hiring on merit again. The issue there is, though, that you've got so many clapping seals that aren't meritorious, that are DEI embracers, that are going to applaud people like Mark Waid for coming out and say, because Mark Waid's a great writer. Don't get me wrong. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. And there's plenty of good writers out there. I could name some names, but people in the chat would probably disagree with some of them. We can always determine if Thor can beat Hulk. Is J.M. DeMatteis a good writer? I think so. Is Straczynski a good writer? I think so. Tom Taylor, not so much, but there's people that are going to disagree with me. But all of them are being cheered on by the environment they're in to continue to double down on blue anon conspiracy type stuff and DEI and crap like that their core audience is not interested in. And it's really unfortunate. I hope that somebody smart with real leadership skills can get things squared away. But I mean, look, who's in leadership at DC? Jim Lee. He's a figurehead. He does nothing. He's not a leader. I mean, he's just a great artist that just got put there because he's a big name and nobody else wanted the job. The guy that left, DiDio. A lot of people can't stand him, but the guy knew how to get it done, right? And he was a hardcore leader. Jim Shooter, he didn't make many friends. Yeah. Great leader, right? That was back when the comics were good. Cebulski, what is Cebulski? You think he's a great leader at Marvel? Absolutely not. He's a pushover, a total pushover that has come up with some of the, or has allowed, I don't know if he comes up with any of the ideas, but he's allowed some of the worst ideas to happen under his watch. So will it change? I don't know. I mean, they're nothing but IP farms for the bigger companies that own them now. So I really don't have high hopes for either Marvel or DC to turn things around. So in answer to your question, some elements yes, some elements no.
And that really has been my contention since these major corporations have gotten involved, especially finding themselves owning comic book companies, starting with DC Comics. You know, it's hard to not in any way see that they don't try to influence what's being put out there today. And Disney, since they've owned Marvel, has gone a long way. I mean, well, there have been changes. I can't really out and out say that Disney has done anything, but I can at least say that as a comic book fan, there's a distinct change since Marvel has been owned by Disney, and that a lot of what they've been putting out is not of the quality that it was prior to Disney's involvement. Personally, I'd like to see more people write and create and produce stories the way that Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams did. You know, even in creating characters that don't necessarily have the same point of view politically, religiously, and in other ways.
Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
That's just a great example of that. I wish more people nowadays, a lot of young people, would read those stories because it really does cover some of that, not all of that. Right. But you can have characters that really have a fundamental disagreement, yet are able to work together, do what needs to be done, and move on from that, which is really what we need. But
if you even want to include politics, I mean, why not have Spider-Man fighting Stegron at a museum of natural arts? I don't need any political bent. I mean, you can occasionally talk about drugs or abortion or a presidential election if you want, and that's fine. Or environmentalism, as Green Arrow and Black Canary were so big on. And that's fine. And it makes sense for Aquaman to be pro clean water, right? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. And of course, you can have that element as part of that character. But back to Mike saying, they don't need to lecture anybody, particularly not the reader, right? Yeah. And because at the end of the day, you're like, I don't care about this. I mean, readers don't want to be lectured to. And you're right. Denny O'Neil knew how to put that in there where it was still a great story. And you can do that that happens in movies too. That happens in television shows. But again, I feel like the current industry is just filled with way too many ideologues that are too busy sniffing their own farts, being real proud of themselves about how they're virtue signaling. You know, the virtue signal is, man, it's like in religion, it's the person who gets their tithe out and says, "Oh, here I am putting my money in the plate, y'all. Look at this big wad of cash I just put." Virtue signaling, man. It's ugly no matter where it's happening, and I think Mike does a great job of not virtue signaling. Now, Mike does have some political ideas. If you follow him on Twitter, you're going to know exactly where he stands. Don't get me wrong. Rich, on the other hand, you might not. All he posts is artwork, pretty much. I mean, not always, right, Rich?
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah. And his social media is him and his wife, just having fun, living life. I mean, Rich is, he has a lust for life. He's not trying to upset anybody, but Mike's a comedian. I don't know if anybody knows that or not, but Mike's constantly telling jokes, but they come from a certain angle. So
I'd like that. I try to keep my social media pretty much just to those things that I really want to concentrate on. I try to keep it towards family and different events and things that I'll do with Pop Culture Minefield, but it is difficult, you know.
it's a minefield.
It is a minefield. It is a minefield. Rich, look, what would be for you something that you would tell anyone wanting to get into the comic industry that was wanting to be an artist? What would your advice be to that particular person?
It would be to crowdfund. You know.
Yeah.
At this point, right? I mean, it was hard enough to get into Marvel and DC before. You know, you know, it was tough. But nowadays, yeah, I mean, it's far easier. You know, you do your own thing.
So now, how long did it take for you to actually to be able to make it into Marvel and DC? I mean, what?
I never did anything for Marvel. I was all DC and and Image. But I met Kevin Conrad. My brother introduced me to him years ago, and we hit it off. And I became his apprentice. Actually, showed me how to use the tools of the inking and all that kind of thing. And so I was his apprentice for a year before I even I was doing little bits of work here and there. I was doing his backgrounds and some blacks and all that kind of thing until I was doing full pages, and then he was passing them off as his own work to Top Cow. And then he revealed that I was doing the work, and that's when I got in. I started getting gigs after that. So
fantastic.
And so it was Image before DC then. Rich.
It was Image, yeah. It was I was working on Ascension, and I did some Darkness stuff, and whatever he was working on. And then he got me into DC, and so it pays to know people too. I have to got friends. That's one possible way.
Again, to look at your work, it's great stuff. I just big fan. I like the way it looks, especially for this particular project. Again, I know you've probably already been asked this, but what is your next project? Again,
my next project. I don't even have one lined up yet.
Rich, how far along is Battlefield Suburbia?
I've got about 20 pages to go.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Chris.
Yes, sir.
I've seen some interesting articles on Bleeding Fool against, well, not against, chronicling attacks against Mike and his comic, Private American.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this up on screen, but I'd like to hear it directly from you.
Let me kind of set the stage here. This is us covering what Bleeding Cool actually did. So just to give the uninitiated a clue, the whole reason I started Bleeding Fool was because I was a regular reader of Bleeding Cool about 8-9 years ago. And in one of the diversity and inclusion articles that was on there, I commented, isn't it great, or isn't it amazing how the X-Men back in the late 70s, early 80s got so popular, but it wasn't marketing itself as diverse and inclusive. Just kind of tongue-in-cheek comment that X-Men 94 was a huge hit and they weren't marketing themselves as a diverse superhero team. And normally when I would comment down in their comment section, I would get replies, if nothing else. If not likes, I'd get replies. And so you kind of go back to these That's what the whole comment section's about, right? Or at least it was back in the day. You'd go back to see who said what in reply to what you said. Particularly if you, like I was kind of proud of my observation. And I got shadow banned. Nobody replied at all. So I logged out thinking, that's funny. What's going on here? So I logged out thinking, well, maybe it's not refreshing. I'll just log out and refresh and look. And my comment wasn't there. And I realized that they had blocked my IP for that absolutely normal observation. And I thought, you know what? It's not that hard to start a website. And if you guys aren't going to allow anybody who thinks differently from you to join the conversation, we'll just make a parody type site satirizing your name, because people would give a backhand or would constantly call them bleeding stool or bleeding fool or whatever, just to mock them, because they do approach everything from sort of a progressive left-wing angle. And we left it at that. I mean, the bleeding fool's been around for about 7 years now. And when unrelated to bleeding fool, Bleeding Cool every month puts out the solicitations for a few of the direct market publishers like Antarctic Press. Well, Antarctic Press picked up Richard Bonk and Mike Barron's Private American, as I said earlier. They took the graphic novel and we formatted into a 3-issue miniseries. And so they put the solicitation, but Rich Johnston, the editor or founder over there, decided to add a little editorial to the solicitation. And that editorial was him saying that it's about a vigilante shooting immigrants at the border, which it's not. It's not him shooting immigrants. And people were pointing out, he said, well, I just went by the cover art, because a lot of people called him out on social media, and they were like, these guys holding these military weapons, those aren't immigrants, are they? And he's like, well, I mean, are they Americans? And that Rich is from Rich Johnston, the founder of Bleeding Cool, is from the UK. So he really has no notion of what the border discussion is here in America. He only knows what MSNBC and CNN say to him, and maybe the Daily Cause. So he's in a left-wing bubble, but a lot of people kept calling him out about it, and he just never relented. And the insult was that, already knowing that the border crisis is a political hot potato in America, it does a disservice to a publisher like Antarctic, not to mention Mike and Rich, to put in your solicitation that this is about a vigilante shooting immigrants at the border. Who wants to buy that? Who would be interested in buying a comic book about a guy that just goes down and starts picking off immigrants? Nobody is interested in that, right? Nobody wants to, because that's just a murderer. But this guy's after the fentanyl dealers. This guy's after the drug and weapons traffickers or the child traffickers. In the first couple of pages, this guy is saving a young woman who's crossing the border. She's crossing it illegally, but she's also about to get tied to a rape tree by the guy that's trafficking her. So our hero sneaks up behind them and does what vigilantes do, and then says to the illegal immigrants, head that way. They'll process you over at the border patrol station, because that's what they're doing now. They're just processing people who are crossing the border. So he's not trying to say no immigrants or no illegal immigrants. He just knows that the fact that it's such a porous border right now, and that there's plenty of drugs and there's plenty of weapons and there's plenty of trafficking that's happening in the midst of all this, and he's trying to clean it up. So, but it was just another example of sort of the left-wing framing of something like that, because having a secure border to people who think like that means you hate immigrants, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. But that's part of the zeitgeist right now.
Wow.
What you're looking at there, I'm not sure why the tweets aren't embedding on your browser very well, but those are all Rich Johnston trying to defend his position and editorializing the solicitation. Now, when this happened, because Antarctic also published Mike's Thin Blue Line, which was a police graphic novel, which this was in the midst of the ACAB, All Cops Are Bastards movement and the defund the police. So when we tried soliciting that to publishers, we got some really weird feedback, like, foul language feedback from some publishers, right? But Antarctic took a chance. And so, and they're also based in Texas. So we've never talked about politics or ideology with the publishers down there. But when I made them aware that Bleeding Cool was editorializing the solicitations from the Left Wing Bent, they said, hey, we are behind you guys 100%. We believe in this project. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. And then they sent us, what their promotional campaign was going to be. So they're behind the book. We hope that people will pre-order it and kind of reward Antarctic for taking a chance on something that's potentially controversial, but it shouldn't be. I mean, like I said, Rambo Last Blood or Sicario or Death Wish or any of these kinds of movies about a vigilante. I mean, it's like Mike said, this would be what the Punisher would be doing. I mean, he was killing rapists. He was killing terrorists. I mean, that's what the Punisher does. And that's what this is. This is for those people who miss the Punisher being what the Punisher used to be, because Marvel's ashamed of the Punisher. And you even see the Punisher emblem, don't you, Rich, in this book more than once.
It shows up.
Yep. It's there. But his emblem, the Private American's emblem, is the snake from the Don't Tread on Me flag. So it's pro-American. As a matter of fact, when they ask him what his name is, he says, I'm just a private American man. And that's where the name Private American comes from. So, I mean, it's red-blooded, patriotic, it's American. But the guy's not really, he is a hero, but, I mean, he's breaking the law. But once he discovers, it's a huge conspiracy because the government is sort of enabling this trafficking to happen.
Well, to be honest, and I swear it is not a deconstructive effort from my part, but most superheroes, they act outside of the law.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right.
So,
but most superheroes don't kill people.
He's not a superhero.
Right. Yeah, he has no superpower. He's just got weapons.
Yeah,
he's an ex-Green Beret, so he's just thinking that he's going to use his training to do what the Border Patrol can't seem to manage to do. It's when he gets involved that the government says, we got to stop this guy because he's messing up our little secret operations. And it just escalates from there because he winds up getting a benefactor who believes in what he's doing, and he's got plenty of money. So it's sort of not an Elon Musk guy, but somebody does underwrites a little bit of his efforts. It's pretty cool. I mean, it ends on a note where you expect more. I'm trying to tell Rich, man, we got to get Rich to do the next volume of this thing. So please pre-order Private American from Antarctic. It's in the previews catalog this month. Please. If it does well, Rich might say, okay, I'll dedicate another half freaking year of my life to this character, right? If it's worth it. So we'll see. But it's a great story, and Rich does, brings his A game to it. And it's kind of cool. It's got some neat stuff that Mike puts in there. And of all of the things that I've read from Mike lately, it may be the most political. It doesn't get too political. It's got a female president in it. So I don't know if that's political or not, but you have to deal. It goes all the way to the top. This conspiracy does. So it's pretty interesting.
Well, it's like a very exciting 24 episode.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But these guys don't work for the government.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
If if you're looking for that Punisher storytelling, you should check it out. I mean, any Punisher fans should definitely pick this up. And when I say Punisher fans, I mean Punisher fans from 5 years ago and further back, all the way to Mike Barron, Garth Ennis, back in the day.
Well,
old school.
Hey, nothing wrong with that at all. There's
Right
nothing wrong with that at all. Wow. Well, it's looking like you got to go soon, Chris.
I got to bail. I told the guys it'd probably be 90 minutes max today. So,
Well, thank you for joining us. We would love to have you back on as soon as you're able to or want to come back, because I think we could talk more about the industry and
I'd love to. Let's figure out what Gary's problem is. I don't know if this was a better show or a worse show with his absence.
It's different because Gary's not here.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll come back on when Gary can be back on. He'll send me a little invite. Then I'll sabotage his computer again. So
thank you very, very much, Chris.
Appreciate it, guys.
You're on, Chris.
See you, brother.
Bye,
With that, I'll be heading out too.
Oh, okay. Well, then, look, Richard, thank you so much for doing this.
I appreciate the invite.
It is, I'm just blown away. And thank you for being willing to come on and at least, just have a good time with us. And again, I've said it to everyone else. It goes double for you. Anytime you want to come back, any project that you want to promote, please come back. Please come back and talk to us.
Thanks, Keith. Yeah, I want to get on here when Gary's actually on.
I'm sure he misses you. I'm sure he's missing being a part of this particular episode. So
maybe he's watching. Is he watching it? Who knows?
I don't know. I mean, as far as we know, he's got nothing really.
Well, thanks for promoting Leviathan. Appreciate it.
Oh, happy to do it. Happy to do it, and happy that you were able to join us to do it with us. So, thank you. Have an incredible day, and we will talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. So long.
No, thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's our episode. And again, this is an incredible project. Whoa, what?
Happy birthday, my friend.
Oh, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For a moment there, part of my sound dropped out.
Oh. Well, yeah. Did you hear me, right?
Hello?
Hello, Keith. Hello.
Ah, there you are. Hey.
I said happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, today is my birthday. It's also the birthday of my twin brother, who I swear I will get on this show again sometime. I'll be able to have him come back and say hello to everyone. And hopefully we'll have something truly exciting and truly memorable to talk about. But then again, there's no shortage of that going on. I mean, everything seems to truly just be rolling right now. There's a lot going on in the industry. There's a lot going on in entertainment. There's a lot going on around the world. And there's always something really cool to talk about. Can I at least just say this, though? Let me take time out to at least say this, even though it is my birthday. I also wanted to bring up one last thing, because I don't think I've actually personally had a chance to talk about this. But
thank you, David. David Martin has gifted you a super chat.
Oh, hey, thank you. Anyway, I know I haven't had a chance to at least talk about this since it happened, but I didn't get a chance to actually publicly say anything, but I think we recently lost one of the Hildebrandt brothers. And I got to say, being it was Greg Hildebrandt that we lost. having grown up with the Hildebrandt brothers artwork, those guys were just, I mean, rock stars to me. They brought so much to life. And I think uh, on a personal level, being a twin, uh, I can't even begin to tell you, you know, what it meant to see these guys achieve, and the praise and the love for their artwork. And again, on a personal level, their artwork graced some of the books that really became important to me growing up that I would read, especially for my twin brother. He went through a phase when we were much younger where he just started in with all of the Tolkien books. And it was just pretty much my introduction to Tolkien had Hildebrandt artwork on it. The work that they ended up doing outside of that, going into other levels, I mean, just, you know, Star Wars, DC, Marvel, those guys just did it all. And they did it in a way that to this day, I don't think there are very many people that could actually touch what they were able to achieve. And if you're one of the few people out there that have no idea who Greg and Tim were, do yourself a favor, Google their artwork, and just sit back and be amazed. You know, we are lesser now that that they're gone. And again, it is something that I've been thinking about, and I haven't really had an opportunity to talk about this even on my show. So, you know, do yourself a favor, find some Hildebrandt art, find their books, especially for those of you, again, who have no idea what I'm talking about. Do yourself a favor and just look that stuff up and just be amazed, you know. But as far as thank you, D. Bud Martin, and thank you, Penny. I am truly touched that there would still be anybody that would at least listen to me being on this show. Because as far as I'm concerned, you know, Gerry and Anima and Martin and John and you know, the chief, those guys are just really cool people, and they have some really cool shows. I try to keep up with what they do. So I know I haven't been a part of a lot of the things that have been generated on Pop Culture Minefield in recent months, but I am still a big fan of everyone. And just know that while I may not have as much output, I am someone who I am just touched by just how much everyone seems to really love what we do here at Pop Culture Minefield and a lot of the shows that we have. And I hope everyone continues to be as entertained and as interactive with us as you can be in the future going forward. So again, just thank you. And yes, I thank you, Tim. So yeah, it's I know I'm lucky. I know I'm lucky. So thank you everyone for the birthday messages, and I just hope that you continue to enjoy my contributions to what we do. Thank you, Snorter. Thank you very much. Of course, D-Bud, we all know. Yes, Martin really is the rock star. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we all know the truth. But again, thank you very, very much. And again, I hope everyone had a good time with today's episode of TGIF. I just want to thank Tim Shinatsky, Read by Nature, Penny, Tom Baker, D-Bud Martin, Snorterpoopus, Cubert, Lord Thoth, and really everyone else, all the fans that we have for TGIF and Pop Culture Minefield in general. Who knows? I might be back next week. I will be back next week.
Much better.
Well, I've gotten older. I don't move as fast as I used to. But, for all of us here, for Martin and myself, I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this episode. And check us out next week when I know Gerry will be back and we can all have a good time with just talking to you and entertaining you. So have a great evening, everybody, and we will see you next time.
See ya.